I think it was 2018, I opened up like a little mobile coffee cart. I actually bought like an old trailer, like camper trailer, and I like gutted it, had windows put into it. I had like this list of businesses like, okay, this would be a good idea. And so I like write it down, and then I like look into it a little bit. And then I had that running list, but I never really acted on anything. But if you've got somebody with you like going through it, and you can be like, hey, what do you think about this? And then it's like, okay, you go research this, you go research this, and then we come back and like meet and brainstorm. It just makes things so much easier and actually forces you to like actually take action and get stuff done. So that was like really a game changer.
This is the Investing RN podcast, and today we are joined by Loftin Dortch. Loftin is a nurse and shoe entrepreneur. I don't know, man. You're selling shoes and they're good. I bought a pair recently, and we'll talk about it later on. But I was very glad with how impressed I was by this pair of shoes I just bought, knowing that we were going to be talking to you soon. But you're still doing nursing. You got the shoe business on the side with Alex, who was on one of our earlier episodes, who's a nurse I worked with. And you have some connection to Josh from Tennessee. So
somehow.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah. So tell us about your journey and how you got into nursing.
Yeah. So, coming out of high school, I was not really sure what I wanted to do. I was like, thinking through all your standard, like, doctor, lawyer, like all the generalized, like things you can go into. Wasn't really sure. I always liked science. I had thought maybe healthcare. My dad was like, hey, like, have you looked into nursing? And so I was like, I haven't really thought about it. So I looked into nursing and saw you could, do so many different things with it. Like you can, get your RN, you can start working, you can, do CRNA, you can do nurse practitioner. There's just like lots of different things you can do, travel nursing. So I was like, oh, that sounds like something I can do that gives me options to do other things. And so that's what I started going into right out of high school. And so I went to Chattanooga State for my RN, then went to University of Tennessee, Chattanooga to get my bachelor's degree. And yeah, that's how I got into nursing.
Yeah, that's where we kind of vaguely had some sort of paths cross. I guess we were talking before we record, and I don't think we ever like officially met, but I had friends that were friends with his now wife, and somehow our paths crossed. We might have met each other at some point. I don't remember.
I'm sure we did. I feel like it's a small enough community to where we cross paths at some point.
Yeah, definitely. I was in Chattanooga for the same 4 years that you were there, so I'm sure at some point we were there.
Definitely, yeah.
And then once you got your bachelor's, did you start working in Tennessee, or did you move elsewhere?
I did, yeah. So I started working in Tennessee. I got my first job at a hospital there in Chattanooga, and it was just med-surg tele. And so started doing that, did that for about a year and a half in Tennessee, and then moved to, I got married, and my wife got into graduate school in Los Angeles. And so we moved in 2014 to Los Angeles, and I got a job actually doing registry. So I was jumping around to a bunch of different hospitals, still doing med-surg tele, and did that for a while after we moved out to Los Angeles.
Coming from Tennessee to Los Angeles, did you notice a significant difference in the way nurses were treated, whether it was like, staffing or I mean, you're a registry too, so they kind of get crapped on in general.
Yeah.
But was it better for you being in Los Angeles?
For sure. Yeah. So for one, the pay was way higher. I mean, like, I think I was making like my first job in Tennessee, I was making like $18.75, like, and which was just like, I mean, I that was like my first like big boy job. So like, I was like, whatever, it's like more than I was making like mowing lawns and stuff, but it was still like, after I moved to California, I was like, oh my goodness, I wasn't making anything. So pay was much better in California. Cost of living's higher, of course, too, but I still feel like it's not even. Like, it's not like, oh, cost of living's more, so I'm bringing home the same amount. Basically, I still don't feel it was like that. I still feel like I was bringing home way more out here. And then there's staffing ratios out here, whereas because we've got why am I drawing a blank on unions? We've
Oh,
got unions in California. So yeah, I mean, we've got the staffing ratios and patient ratios. So in Tennessee, there were times where we'd be short, and it's just like, all right, you're taking on like more patients, and whereas like out here in California, they wouldn't do that. But also, registry, like you said, the assignments I would get jumping around hospital to hospital were always the worst because they just give you the patients that everybody else doesn't want. So that wasn't great. But besides that, yeah, it seemed like definitely an upgrade coming out to California.
I think that cost of living thing's interesting because Josh's parents, so my in-laws, were just out here recently, and they're from Wisconsin. And they're always trying to convince us to move back to Wisconsin. But we're having that exact conversation with them because we're telling them, we're like, we make so much more here in California that even with the increased rent and like, buddy of mine's visiting, and we've been going out to restaurants up here, and it's just like shocking how much food costs, which is the same. It was the same in LA where we just moved from, but it's just like, even with all that, because of how much more we're making, it still makes more sense to live and work in California. But for somebody like Josh and their dad's a CRNA, they make a lot more being in Wisconsin, and the cost of living's less. So it makes sense for them. But for us, like,
definitely
just doesn't add up.
Definitely. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, there's different scenarios where it's like, oh yeah, it would make a lot more sense if like your salary's about the same, like you can buy, like, cause of course the housing market out here in LA is just insane. So, it's like, if you want to like buy, like, which you guys know, I mean, that's what you do. It's like, you want to buy investment properties and do all that. It's like, California might not be the place to like get into that, but everywhere. Yeah. I mean, depending on what you're doing, it's like, yeah, the salary is so much higher, the hourly rate so much higher here that it makes sense.
Yeah, it's definitely, I don't know. And it comes down to like where you want to be too. Are you in Santa Monica, or where are you at?
No, so we're in Echo Park, which is just outside of downtown. Yeah, which
been gentrified.
It is. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's so interesting to see how, different parts of LA and how they're growing. And like, I feel like there's new apartment complexes going up like every week. I'll be driving down and there's another one going up, and there's these giant, I'm like, I don't know who they're getting to move in here because they're not cheap either, but it seems like they're filling them up.
Even with all the issues they're having down there. Because again, the same guy was telling me that, I don't know if you've ever been to Langer's Deli down there. It's like MacArthur Park.
Yeah.
He was saying they might be shutting that down because it's just gotten so bad there. And I mean, that's a Los Angeles establishment. I mean, that's been there for years. And that, I don't know if you've had the pastrami there.
Yeah.
But if you haven't had the number 17 at Langer's.
Number 17. Okay. I don't think I had that. So I'll have to, I'll have to try
that. It's their pastrami, but it's, oh man, it's so good. But anyways, so it's just interesting that you have something like Langer's that may or may not be going out of business at the same time. And just down the street, they're building all these apartments and everything. So I don't know.
Sure. Yeah, I was actually having, because I went to my barber and they're putting up one right by like the little strip that's got like, it's got a few restaurants and it's got like the barbershop there and stuff like that. And I was like, hey, there's about to be a ton of people moving in once this finishes. I'm like, that's got to be good for business. Like, people are going to be walking by a lot more, things like that. He's like, yeah, but also it's like, we lucked out because we locked in our rent. I guess the guy who owns it signed like a 10-year lease or something. And now it's like, he talked to one of the restaurants that just went in recently, and they're paying way more than like for rent, just because as things grow, it's like that rent goes up. And man, I feel like that's why you see so many restaurants and stuff like go out of like move in and then they're there a couple months and move out, because it's like, you got to make so much just to pay rent, and then on top of that to like make something from it. So
I think restaurants tend to be like, within commercial real estate, restaurants tend to be one of the things that it sounds like people stay away from, and like even businesses and stuff like that.
Restaurants and grocery stores.
Yeah.
Which is
we would have done.
We almost bought one, so that would have been.
Oh,
fun.
really?
Yeah. It's a
grocery stores are like a necessity, though. Like, restaurants can kind of go either way. I mean, some of them are there for a long time, but
right,
it's risky.
Yeah.
back to the nursing progression. So you worked as a nurse for a certain amount of years, and then at what point? So Colin said earlier that we talked with Alex, your business partner, about the shoe company. So at what point were you like, did you meet Alex and you're like, hey, let's do something else, or like where did that start?
Yeah, so I had been working as a nurse for probably about six years or so, and I had just started like having this like entrepreneurial itch. Yes, it's hard to say. So I just started like having that, and just being like, oh man, it'd be like I'd love to like start my own business, and I didn't even really know what I wanted to do. I was just like, oh, that seems like it'd be great. I was listening to like all these like how I built this. Like I listened to like every episode of how I built this, and just like love listening to startups and how they got going, and like how, you know, challenges they ran into. And so I just started getting really interested in that. So listening to a lot, reading a lot. And then I was super into coffee. And so I actually, in I think it was 2018, I opened up like a little mobile coffee cart. I actually bought like an old like trailer, like camper trailer, and I like gutted it and had windows put into it. And I was going to do like events like weddings and, food pop-ups and things like that. So I was like getting it all set to do that. And then I had this little cart built, and I was doing some events with that while I was nursing. And it was fun. It was one of those things where I knew like I'm not going to do mobile coffee for forever. Like it's kind of a like I love the coffee shop vibe where you go in and like the barista and like you're hanging out, but like mobile coffee is very much just like, especially events, it's like how many shots can you pull in like 3 hours or something. So it's just like
Yeah.
a constant, like you're not talking to anybody, you're just taking
Yeah.
orders and like doing your thing. So it was fun because I got to learn so much about starting a business and dealing with the health department and all that. So that's kind of how I got into like out of nursing and like into different interests. And so then when I moved to New York for a little bit, I sold all my stuff, and I was actually doing school nursing for a while when we moved to New York, like as a travel nurse. And that's when I like had a lot of time on my hands because it's, I mean, it's first aid basically. So like tummy aches and, scrapes and whatever. So I was just like, again, just like looking into like businesses and listening to podcasts and reading. And so I had like this list of like businesses like, okay, this would be a good idea. And so I like write it down, and then I like look into it a little bit. And then, so I had that running list, but I never really acted on anything. But then Alex and I had actually met as we were doing like vitamin infusions at this, like med spa for a little while. And we had met there and actually only done like one shift together. And it was before I moved to New York, but we had like exchanged information and like we're keeping up with each other on social a little bit. But that's when I saw he was doing like the CMOS gummies, and he was into like fitness and trail running, and he was a nurse, and like we had similar interests. And so I was like, I should just like reach out to him and see like if he would be interested in starting a business. I didn't even know what we would do. So I just like reached out and was like, hey Alex, would you be interested in starting a business? Like this is like kind of what I'm thinking. And he was like, hell yeah, man, let's do it. So I was like, okay, cool. So that's kind of how we like started talking, and still we didn't know it was going to be shoes, but like that's how we got into it. Sorry, I've been talking a lot, but that's how
This is your
initially we
episode.
started.
This episode's all you, man.
Yeah, so we started talking. Then we started brainstorming, and that's one thing I'll say, which I'm sure you guys can relate to, but it's like having a co-founder or somebody you're in business with that you can just bounce ideas off of and brainstorm is just like a game changer. Because we like, before I started talking to Alex, I had all these ideas and things I wanted to do, but it's harder to act on it by yourself. But if you've got somebody with you, like going through it, and you can be like, hey, what do you think about this? And then it's like, okay, you go research this, you go research this, and then we come back and like meet and brainstorm. It just makes things so much easier and actually forces you to like actually take action and get stuff done. So that was like really a game changer as far as me moving, actually taking steps to like do the business entrepreneur like journey. And so we started brainstorming and ended up shoes. Shoes
Yeah.
was what came up.
We talk about that same thing all the time. In fact, like last week's episode, that was kind of like the focus. Like, what do you do to get started in business or in real estate? Honestly, find some sort of a partner, a hype man, where you can go hype each other up to actually do something.
Yeah,
Because it's so
100%.
easy. It's so easy to put stuff off.
Yeah,
Like, oh, I can do this next week, and then that turns into like however long you put it off for,
yeah,
never.
definitely. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So how many ideas did you guys go through before you got to shoes?
It was probably a couple weeks of like back and forth, but I mean, we did like, we were thinking of like this, uh, chia seed like drink, because both of us were into running, and we're like, oh, we hear like if you make like this like chia seed like mixture, it's like more hydrating than if you just drink regular water. And like, so we were like buying chia seeds at like this grocery store and making this thing, and it was kind of gross. So we're like, I don't think this is the play. But yeah, we were just going through a bunch of stuff, and I'd say it was probably like 2 or 3 weeks of just brainstorming, going back and forth, and then we were just kind of running through like, we were both into fitness. We were both in like, we knew healthcare really well. So we were kind of like running through different ideas like within those two like spaces. And that's when like footwear came up, and we're like, do you wear any of like the healthcare shoes that are out there right now? And I was like, I don't. And Alex is like, I don't either. And it's like, well, why don't we do that? And so we kind of dove into that more. And it's like, it's nice to have the functionality, but like the style is just, no companies are paying attention to that. Like it's like, okay, here's a shoe that can be water resistant, but that's basically all you need. Like that's what we're focusing on. So we're like, well, what if we care about design? What if we create these features, but it doesn't look, if you wore the shoe outside the hospital, it would still look like a good looking shoe that you would just want to buy, even if it didn't have the functionality that it has. So that's where we're like, okay, I think there's a little hole here in this space. And so we started researching and looking into it, and we're finally like, okay, I think this is what we're going to do.
And I can personally say, and like I was telling you before, I was nervous leading up to this because I knew I was going to be buying these shoes before we interviewed you, and I was like, man, if these things suck and I have to like lie to him to his face, but I ended up getting them, and like the shift I got him, I had an ICU patient. I'm in the ER, but we had this guy come in and we ended up intubating him. So it was like 3 hours of just like on my feet running around before I got him up to the ICU. And I was pleasantly surprised by how comfortable it was, because a lot of times my heels start hurting when I'm in shoes and on my feet for a long time. But they're very comfortable, nice and breathable. Well, there's space, so they're breathable while still being the water resistant. So
yeah,
not plugging your shoes, but also I am plugging your shoes. Go out and get some minis.
Affiliate link, investing RN pod, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Or I don't even know is mine still active. I had it because my shoes were falling apart. I got a special link, so I don't know. That might be out there too.
That might be just special for you.
Yeah, that might be a special one for me. But anyways, yeah, they're great. So I was happy about that.
Thank you.
So can you talk about like the actual building of the business? Because I see you guys on Instagram now, and it like you guys are running a legit operation. So I'd like to know a little more details about like from idea to where you are now. Like, what did that look like? What are some of the roadblocks that you had to like jump over to get to where you are now?
For sure. Yeah. So starting out, like first of all, I mean, Alex and I had no experience in footwear at all. So like, we didn't know that space in the least. We knew like our market and like us as being healthcare professionals. So we knew what we wanted. We just didn't know how to get there. So we started researching, Googling, how do you make a shoe? Like we had to find a designer that we could work with. We then had to find like a manufacturer so that we could start prototyping. And that took about a year from like start of design to finished like prototype that we were like, okay, we can go out and sell this, and we're super happy with like the quality of it.
And is this like a ton of back and forth the entire year, or is it kind of like, oh, you send something, wait 2 weeks, get something back, wait another 2 weeks?
Yeah, basically that's what it is. That part's the hardest part, because it's like you send like the plans and all the specs, and they create it and send it back. And of course, it's like the first time it's going to be like, okay, we need to change this, and this. So you make the changes, you send it back, they make the changes. So it's a lot of back and forth and shipping time and all that. It just takes a while to finally, get that finished product.
For you and Alex, as this is going on, were you in LA now once you guys actually started diving into this fully?
Yes, yes. So, well, actually, for the design part of it, I was still in New York. And so throughout the initial design, I was in New York, and then I ended up moving back to LA when we started getting like completed prototypes and things like that we were actually putting on, wearing, and testing out.
How did you guys find, like, being that you, not to say you weren't friends, but you weren't really friends when you got into this. You guys were just more of acquaintances. But how did you guys find the communication to be, especially being remote, but as you're trying to develop this thing, was there any hangups there as you were going through that process?
I think initially it wasn't too bad. I mean, the time difference was a little tricky, 3 hour difference, but besides that, it was like, for especially that initial like design startup phase, it was mainly just like us going back and forth. We could like FaceTime, we could text, email, a lot of back and forth that way. So actually it was pretty smooth for that initial part. We would Alex, maybe he was working on like talking to the attorney about trademarking, and I was, talking to the designer about, the prototype. So like we would split things up, and then we could always, easy to get in touch with each other if we like needed to run something by the other. So I think it was definitely not terrible being coast to coast, but once we started getting the like actual physical product in, it was much easier for us to both be there, because then, we don't have to like one of us get it and then ship it to the other and then come back. It just makes it a lot easier to be in the same place.
I assume like the first few, so you were like trying on prototypes and wearing them and stuff. Were there a few where you're like blisters and feet are bloody and you're like, okay, we have to change something here, this is not working?
Not to that extent, which was great, because I was fully expecting it to be like, okay, like we're gonna have get a blister or like something falls apart or whatever. But I think we designed, like, by the time we were getting the finished product that we were actually wearing out, we had gotten it pretty close to like what we wanted it to be. So like, of course there were adjustments we would make, but it was never to the point where it was like, oh wow, this is like completely coming apart, or like, oh man, I've got a really bad blister. So it's never to that extent, but there were definitely like, okay, we've got to like adjust the tongue on this. It's like maybe rubbing a little bit, so we need to add some padding and adjust that a bit. And we would just send that to our manufacturer, and they'd make the adjustments for us.
So it was nothing like Colin's current shoes that he just replaced.
Correct.
Which were name brand at some point.
Well, okay, to be fair, because like I am a fan of Nike. Those shoes were like 15 years old. They've been sitting in my closet, and the glue
Unis
was
would
just
never.
like drying up. Yeah, Unis would never.
Would never.
By the way, but so because I tried to like post something to like Nike, and Nike probably saw it and was like, "Dude, this model is from like 2001.
Right?
Like you're not getting free shoes." I was like, "Come on, Nike, hook me up."
Come through.
They didn't respond to me. One of my friends I work with, she posted a video too and tagged Nike. Nike ignored her.
Nothing,
I think they knew that model had been discontinued for about 2 decades. So they're just
right. They're like,
whatever.
you've had it long enough. You've gotten enough wear.
Yeah. But funny enough, I wasn't actually wearing them, so I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Sure.
Well, it's funny because it's like, there's one of those things. Have you seen any of the videos where it's like people will have like their Jordans in like a shoebox and never wear them, and they'll like take it out and they just like crumble? Have you seen those videos?
I haven't.
They were. It's so weird. It's like one of those things where it's like actually not wearing them will actually like shorten the life of the shoe. They need to be like worn. And so anyways, you'll have to look it up after this. It's wild. It almost looks like it's like a cake or something, where they would like touch it and it would just like crumble and fall apart. So weird.
See, that must have upset a lot of collectors, because
100%. And that's why I think some of the really like intense ones have them like temperature controlled and stuff like that, like
Oh my
rooms
goodness.
and stuff. Yeah, it's wild. Like sneaker culture is wild.
Yeah. I know. And then you just have these shoes. I don't know. It's not my thing, but I have other stuff that's
Yeah.
stupid to other people. So whatever. I guess
Right.
I can't judge.
Yeah.
But they're not
Right.
cheap either. Like those shoes they're
No,
buying are like hundreds and hundreds of dollars.
100%.
So
Yeah, it's an expensive hobby.
yeah. Oh yeah. So this entrepreneurial itch that it sounded like you've had for a while, was this something that you kind of feel like you've always had, or was this something that was born out of you not particularly loving nursing?
Yeah, I think it was something new. 'Cause like coming I guess I never was around anyone like my dad was an occupational therapist, my mom was a teacher, so I didn't have anybody in my direct like family who I was around who was like starting businesses and things like that. So I guess I never really even for myself thought of that even coming out of high school. It's like, oh, maybe I'll like go into business and like start my own business. Like that didn't even cross my mind going into like college or anything. So I think it was more of like after as maybe I was exposed to some like, like podcasts or things like that where I was like, oh, like there were regular people working their regular jobs and then they started a business that they had no experience or like, starting up. So I was like, oh, actually I could do that even though I didn't go to like college for that. So I think it was something where I was like, nursing, I was kind of getting a little burnt out. I was like, had these interests in other areas. And so I was like, okay, yeah, I want to pursue this.
Now, has that been able to get you out of nursing or at least cut you back a decent amount?
It has, yeah. I've cut back. My most recent job was in outpatient surgery, which I actually really liked. 8-hour shifts. It was a lot more chill than like med surge floor. So I enjoyed that, and so I'm down. I'm actually still working like 1 to 2 days a week, just pay the bills. But I was working full time when we started, just doing shoes, getting this all set up and running. And then I've been able to, I work per diem. So basically, I only had like have to work like one shift a week. And so I've just slowly been like cutting back my hours. And so now I'm down to about 1 day a week. And then hopefully by the end of the year, it'll be 100% into uni.
And is that because what you're doing with the shoes has replaced your nursing income, or just because you're making enough to get by and you're okay with that?
Yeah. So right now, it is not replacing just because right now we're like inventory runs are so expensive,
Yeah.
like materials are so expensive, and in footwear like you pay all well in most products you pay all that up front, and so it's like we've got to like stockpile so that we can put in our next like inventory order. So a lot of like Alex and I were not taking well, actually we're still not taking anything currently. Everything's going right back into the business, but we're at the point now where we're having the conversation of, well, we're actually going to go fundraise here in the next few months. We've been working on getting like our pitch deck and our financials together, and so we're planning to do that, but also we're going to take a little from the business here in the next few months as well. So luckily, I have a partner who has a stable job, and that's helped me cut back. And then I'm able to just like pitch in a little bit, and then you just like tighten up the spending a bit, and hope it pays off.
So that's the secret to passive income is a working spouse.
Exactly,
Yeah,
100%.
I can get on board. I can get on board with that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
but it's I mean it's good. So it's giving you some freedom to kind of move around. I mean we're very
Yeah,
familiar with the whole not making any money and just putting it all back into it.
yeah,
we
And
yeah,
we've done a couple random ones, but it's not been anything near the amount of work that's been put into the business, and I think that's what
yeah,
makes a
yeah,
business successful.
yeah, yeah,
it's a huge sacrifice, but I guess, and I mean I don't know how you feel, but there's times when I've looked back at my life when I was just doing my 36 hours a week. And I think to myself, I'm like, well, that wasn't that bad. I was making pretty good money. I could like have 7 days off without taking a day off. And I've gotten caught thinking, what if I just went back to that? But then I remember when I was in that state and I was just always, I don't want to say miserable, but kind of,
yeah,
and I
for
don't
sure.
know. it seems kind of ridiculous. Only 36 hours a week, 3 days a week, and you're just miserable. It's like
Right.
you can't get through that. But I don't know. I mean, it's just you get this like taste of something else, and it's I don't know.
Definitely.
It's definitely not easy, but
Right.
it excites me and it's interesting. So I keep pursuing it.
Exactly. And it's one of those things too where it's like, especially for startups, it's like going into it like you're not going to be making bank like right off the bat. Like you got to put everything back in, but it's like if you build a healthy business, a good product, like it's going to pay off. So you just got to put in your time up front, and then that those, payoffs will come a little later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I guess what kind of like so in our industry, real estate, we base our deals on underwriting and projections and that kind of stuff. But when you're getting ready to make one of these big orders and you're investing, what I'm assuming is thousands of dollars in these orders, what are you guys doing prior to that to know that there's a market for these however many shoes you're ordering?
Yeah. So it's easier now that we've been selling product for or shipping product for a little over a year now. And so that the first inventory orders are tough because you're kind of like, okay, we're going to order like, especially shoes, there's so many sizes. So it's like, okay, we're going to like order, we think these shoe sizes are going to be more popular and we think this color is going to be more popular, but you really don't know. And so the beginning stages are just like a huge learning curve because you find out which SKU is going to sell more of, which sizes are going to sell more of. And so now we've kind of gotten a good, like enough orders and a good idea of what people like and what sizes are going to sell more. And so now we can we're like, okay, if we order this amount, this should last us, X amount of time if we're selling, at this rate. So now it's a lot easier, but at first it was just a big guessing game. You tried to look like we try to look up like what are the most like popular selling shoe sizes and things like that. But you really don't know until you like start selling.
Did you guys have to eat any big shipments initially, or has it all just kind of worked itself out?
Yeah, no, everything has worked itself out. I mean, like we started out with like 1,000 pairs of shoes. Like that was our initial inventory order, and then our second inventory order was 2,000 pairs, and then our third one was 5,000 pairs. So every time we've gone up, and we've like in between that 2,000 pair and the 5,000 pair, like we ran out of so many sizes. And so we're like working to like, all right, we got to restock. But of course you got lead times and all that. And so that's another learning curve too, though, because it's like you're dealing with like suppliers and your manufacturer, and both of them have lead times. So it's like, that was one where we like didn't plan it out quite right. And so there was a lag in between when we put our order in and then when we got restocked. And so now we've got that system down pretty well. And so because you don't want to, I mean, it's a good problem to have to be sold out of stuff, but you don't want to be sitting like that for very long because you're like, missing out on orders.
What is your I mean, I'm so just from Instagram, I'm pretty impressed with what you guys have been doing with marketing. I mean, it looks like Josh was saying, it looks like you got a full on
Yeah, are
legit
those
operation going.
your videos are super super. I don't know how does this. They're great. They're great. Are you like
Thank you.
hiring actors and stuff? Or are these all just friends getting together on a Sunday afternoon to make some videos?
Yeah, so these up till now, it's pretty much been just all friends. We have recently, or actually for our initial like launch, we hired out like someone to shoot content and edit for us, and that was kind of like it was like our Kickstarter video. We didn't go through Kickstarter, but we did do pre-orders for our first round, and so we kind of made a little like pre-order Kickstarter video, and so we paid a little bit to have that done. And then most recently, which we haven't put out yet, but we just shot again some content that we paid for. But as far as social media and all our other stuff, we've done ourselves, and just gotten for our photo shoots. We've like people we've either worked with or friends. We've like gotten them to come like help us out and give them a pair of shoes and they'll do it for us. But like for a startup, it's like you just try to be as scrappy as possible. That's why Alex and I, especially at first, were in so much of the content, because it's just like, it's not like we wanted to be, but it's like, well, it's free, so
Yeah.
you don't have to pay anybody to be in it. So it's like, all right, let's do
I
it.
mean,
So that's
your videos are the better ones, to be honest. I think they're
Oh,
hilarious. I love them.
thank you, thank you.
yeah.
Yeah,
We still got love for Alex.
yeah.
He was,
Yeah.
Alex is okay, I
yeah.
guess. But
It's okay. Well, we would have little competitions where it's like, if we put out an ad with like Alex in it and me in it, and then one of us does better, it's like, sorry man, like you tried.
Yeah.
Good try. So you guys are putting up quite a bit of money into your marketing, because I see it kind of all over. I see it Facebook all over, and Instagram. Are those the only two platforms you're really paying for like marketing, or is it going everywhere?
No, so right now, Facebook, Instagram, and Google, those are the main ads we're running. So yeah, we were actually running, like Alex, he jumped into that initially when we were just like super, super scrappy, and like learned how to do like Facebook ads and things like that. And he was actually doing really good, but we got to the point where it's like, we're trying to, juggle so many like hats, and it's like, okay, this would be a good one, especially as we're trying to scale. Like, this would be a great one, like, to, contract out and get somebody to start running our ads for us. So we still like provide the content, like nobody makes that for us, but like the guy who's doing it, he'll be like, hey, this ad's been doing really well. Like, can you give me a few more, like videos or pictures or whatever like this? And so we'll send it to him. But yeah, we're just on Facebook, Instagram, and Google, and those honestly have been doing really, really well. We've been slowly increasing our ad spend, especially recently. Like every like week or so, we'll like up it a little bit, and sales have been doing really well. So as long as like we're keeping it, like our ad spend and our orders and cost of customer acquisition is good, we'll keep kind of bumping that up.
I'm kind of curious. If you don't want to say, you don't have to say, but like the amount of money being put into marketing, and if I mean, I assume you've made enough sales to where you can tell, like, if I spend $100 on marketing, I might get 100 sales. I assume you have some sort of numbers like that. Are you comfortable sharing those? If not, then we'll keep moving.
Yeah. I mean, so like our most recently, like our cost of customer acquisition is like $40, which is a pretty good, like, that's been pretty solid. And I mean, at first it wasn't like that. So like there's been a lot of learning, and like, getting like brand awareness and things like that, all of that has helped a lot. But our return on ad spend is around like a 3.5 right now, averaging, which is also been pretty solid for us, and seems to keep improving. So I'm still trying to improve that. So I think recently for ads, we've been paying about, well, I know I see like a $1,200 charge come through about every 3 days. So I don't know what that comes out to weekly or monthly, but that's, I think, about what we're spending right now.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so that's how much it costs
Yeah.
to be everywhere all the time. Because I
Yeah,
see you guys all over the
exactly.
place, and it's great. I mean,
Yeah.
I assume as long as you're making more money than you're spending, then it's a win.
And that's the thing. That's like the balance, because it's like, and that's where like the place where we've gotten into, which we knew we needed to as we're going to go out and start fundraising. It's like, you've got to be able to come to investors and be like, okay, this is how much we're putting into ads, and like, this is our cost of acquisition, and this is like our return on ad spend. And it's like, as long as like you're bumping up that ad spend and your sales are going up with it, like, then you're good. And so luckily that's what we've been seeing. And it comes down to like brand awareness, reviews, like quality of your product. Like, if we had bad shoes, and like, it doesn't matter how much you spend in ads, like if people try them and are telling their friends like, these shoes suck, like, they're going to see an ad and then they're not going to go for them. So luckily we started out with a solid product that we were super proud of, and then from there, as long as you're getting your name out there and your ads are, people are seeing your product and they're buying it, it works out.
Yeah, I know. So everybody always says, like, what's your marketing budget? And everybody I've talked to always has the same answer. Well, I mean, there's no marketing budget as long as it does what it's supposed to. But like,
Right.
I mean, that's hard, especially starting out because you don't know how well the ads are going to do and all that. So what was kind of your thought process just first starting out with the ads? Like, let's test it. We have got a couple $1,000. Let's see what happens.
So like we started out where we made some ads. Like for Alex and I, we would kind of just like look at ads that we were seeing and we're like, okay, this like style of ad is doing really well. So let's make a video that looks similar to this. So we go and make a video, and then we would like do like a video, and we do some static images and like some carousels, and we'd like do different ones and then put them out there. And I think we started out maybe doing like $100 a day was like our limit that we do. And then from there, we would like see how it did, see what ads were hitting and, getting clicks and orders and converting. And then some would like not do anything. So you just like discard those, and then you would go like put more money into the ones that were working. And so started out $100 a day because it's like that's pretty much all we can do right now. And then from there, it was basically like you said, it's like you start getting orders, you start being able like, okay, we can put more into ads, and it's literally been just like a slow bump. It's like, all right, let's bump up to 150. All right, let's do 175. Let's do 200. So it's like slowly just building that, and then now it's our ads guy who's running it now we have like a weekly meeting, and it's like, all right, I think we can like let's bump it up to this week, and we're like, all right, let's do it.
So does this guy have access to like your business like information also, so he can see how much sales are coming from these ads, or is it more just like, oh, a lot of people are seeing these, and that's as far as he goes?
No, so yeah, he has access to where he can see all the metrics, and so we can, and we like factor into our cost of customer acquisition. Like we factor in like the fee that we pay him, so that it's like that's part of our marketing budget. That's part of our ad spend basically. So that way you kind of get that full picture. We don't have time for this, but like before we started with this guy, we started with this like big agency because we were like, okay, we need somebody to manage ads. Like we want somebody who's like knows their stuff. Like, we can just like hand over the reins and like, we're good. And oh my goodness, it's the worst decision we ever made. Like this company they knew how to get you in, but once you're in, they literally just like put like one of their junior associates on you. And like, we were literally telling this guy how to do his job. And we're like, this email is really bad. Like you need to rewrite it. Say this. And it's like, we're like giving him new ads and like telling him when to turn certain ads off. And we're just like, oh my goodness. Yeah, we got to get out of here. So that was a big waste of money. And like the lowest, like our, like the worst our numbers have ever been was when we switched to this company. And as soon as we switched, went back up. So we're like, you live and learn.
Yeah.
I was so as I mentioned before, I bought the shoes recently, and I was pretty impressed with just the whole process, and like the website was great, the the whole communication, like the emails, is like the shipping and all that stuff. So what is and then I know you mentioned you have somebody running your ads and all that, but what does the rest of your team look like now?
So right now it is just Alex and myself still. We're part of like the fun part about like growing, and you start to, be able to actually take money and like budget it for like different things. It's like, okay, now we can actually realistically look at building out like a team, and even not necessarily even like bringing people on full time. It's just like contractors. Like we want to get somebody to start running our social media and like creating content for us. We'd love to be able to just give that part to somebody and be there to, help with the vision and the branding and the messaging, but just somebody to like do that. So that's kind of in the spot we're in now, where we've built it to a point where it's like, okay, now we can start giving up some of these things, and we don't have to try to do everything. But currently it is just the guy running our ads and Alex and myself.
And he's like a contract, right? He's not employed by you guys.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
exactly. Yeah, he's a contract. Which I mean, it's like the more that's the way to go. It's like contract, like for everything. Like we're doing customer service right now, but we're going to contract that out, which is super easy to do, and you can get it done for not that expensive. So yeah, that's definitely. I mean, eventually we'll get to the point where we can bring some people on, maybe part time or full time if we need to. But at first, it's going to be all contract.
And your story sounds so similar to ours because like we're not taking much money from the business. We're every time we make some money, we're like either adding some equipment or some new hire to kind of help us run smoother and more efficiently. But one day, just wait.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing. It'll pay off. You just gotta. Building a business definitely isn't a fast play. It's definitely a slow play.
Right. And
Well,
you see it working. It's not like you're like, well, maybe this will
100%.
work one day. You're like, oh no, this works. We're just
100%.
prolonging the gratification. We're delaying the gratification.
Yeah.
100%. And it's like Alex and I know we could be taking like money right now, but we know that like we keep looking ahead, and that's what makes it so hard, because it's like, okay, well, we could take money and that'd be great, but it's like, oh, also it'd be a lot harder to put in that next order of inventory. So since we're able to hold off for like a little bit longer, then we can do that for now. And I can keep working like a shift or two to like, help with that. And then eventually, transition out.
Yeah. And that's one of the best things about nursing and the, like what we do is because every dollar you take now is probably going to be $5 in a couple of years, and we can delay that and we can wait.
I don't know too many other careers where you can just show up casually one day a week and just, and maintain your job. So as much as like, I know a lot of people are burnt out on nursing, and I've had my moments. It's like there are some big positives. I think Josh is about to queue up the final five here, but since you are business partners with Alex, when is your 110-mile race through the Alps coming up?
Yeah. So Alex and me we actually both have races the same weekend coming up on October 11th. But Alex is doing a 240-mile race in Moab.
No.
Wow.
240 miles?
240. It's going to take him like 3.5 days. Like crazy.
I was like, so that would take me 3.5 years.
Yeah, it's wild. It's like you like for those you like sleep for like maybe you might come to a spot and sleep for like an hour and a half, and then you get back up and like keep going. And it's like, yeah, that's not for me. I mean, I am doing a 100-mile race in Big Bear October 11th, so that'll be my first 100-miler I've done. I've done like a 62-miler. This will be 100.
You should have started with that, because that's not even impressive anymore.
That's what I'm saying. That's so true. I thought about that after I said it, but also that it's helped me because I'm like at mile 80, I'll be like, Alex he'll be like halfway done or not even halfway done at this point. So I can do 20 more miles. Like,
oh my goodness, that is ridiculous.
I don't know.
It's wild.
I see it and I'm like very impressed, and there's like a small part of me that's like, man, I want to do that. And then like the rational side of me kicks in and I'm like, why? Because but it is. It's,
100%.
All right,
it's
be
impressive.
honest. Are you gonna run those races in unis?
I will not.
Okay.
They're not running shoes.
They are not right. Yeah, they would not be built to withstand the 100-mile trail race. Although me and Alex, our dream, which we realize it's for our lane, doesn't really match, but we want to make a trail shoe so bad, like so bad. That's our dream. But
that's a good point though. Okay, because that's like something that I think we all experience, that shiny object syndrome. And it's like, for us, we're always seeing these other things and we're like, oh man, you got to do that. But it really is. It's just like, you got to be focused and like focus on what you're doing, stay in your lane. Even with this podcast, it's like, oh, we could interview this person and this person and this person. We're like, no, our focus is nurses. Let's focus on that. But
right. 100%.
It is tough.
It's tough. It is tough because you want to do it, but it's like, I don't think it makes too much sense.
Yeah. I just realized too that Alex just moved to Denver, right?
He did. Yeah. So he moved a couple weeks, 2 or 3 weeks ago. He moved there. So yeah, he says the plan is to not be there. Like he'll come back eventually. And I'm like, I've been seeing his
I was
like
gonna say,
videos of
yeah.
him hiking in the mountains.
Every day.
I'm like, bro, you're never coming back.
I know. I'm impressed that like he's done more hikes in the last 2 weeks since he's been there than I've done in like the last 3 years probably. So
Right,
it's
yeah,
yeah. I
yeah,
don't. He may not be coming back. But has that
yeah.
changed anything, or has it made it more difficult, or do you have it pretty well
You
dialed in
know,
now?
yeah, we have it pretty well dialed in. That's why we felt comfortable with it. Like we feel like we're in a good flow, and like Denver to LAX is super like easy flight. So if like there's anything, say we want to do like a shoot or something, like one of us can go there super easy. But like the day to day is super manageable, like being Zoom and text and whatever. So yeah, it's a bummer, of course, because like we love like going running and stuff, and it is nice to be like in the same place sometimes and work, just because like you can vibe off each other in person and it's a little different, but like there's really we can do everything we need to like
Yeah.
remotely.
Was
Yeah.
there any like conversation between the two of you, like almost him asking for permission or just bringing it to you, like, hey, what do you think of this? Or was it like he made his decision and just went?
He well, he said so he probably gave me like a month and a half, like dropped it on me, but he said he's been like his fiance kept asking like, "Have you told Loftin yet?" And he's like, "No, I'm gonna tell him soon." So he was like nervous like about what I would like think. So I think he had pretty much made of it. It made sense for him. Like his fiance is actually going to go to nursing school, and so like they wanted to go somewhere where they could still be in the mountains, things like that. But it was like cost of living's a little cheaper. Like they're outside of Denver, but like still a cool place that they can go and do the things they like. So, yeah, so that's like one of the big reasons. So they were pretty sure that's what they were going to do, but he was like, yeah, I think I might move to Denver. And I was like, oh, no way. And I was like kind of shocked, but I was like, we talked it through. And we're like, well, I mean, like it works. Like we're in a good place right now where we can do that. And I was like, so when you thinking? Like probably like a month and a half. And I'm like, oh, okay,
Okay.
all right.
This is not an idea. This
Yeah.
is
Yeah,
happening.
it's
Yeah.
happening. Yeah. So
Well, at least you guys have major airports separating you, because when I gotta go to Green Bay, it's like
yeah,
3 flights to get there, or like fly in
yeah,
3 hours away. So you have that
And
going
definitely.
for
we're
you.
making it work.
Yeah.
Yeah. It definitely could work, but it makes it a lot easier that it's like a direct flight for
Yeah.
sure.
But that whole getting together though in person and vibing, because like any issues or drama we've had in our business is directly related to just not communicating, not connecting enough. And so it's something, it's like essentially like another relationship you have to nurture.
Yeah,
But I mean it
hundred
is,
percent.
and it's important. So yeah,
Definitely. Yeah, for sure.
I wish you all
All
the
right, I'm
best.
gonna bring us back to the final five here. Final five. Question number one. All right, here we go. What is a top financial resource that you have found? Where do you go to educate yourself on business? Because I mean, you spoke about it earlier, like no business background, no shoe knowledge. So where do you educate yourself on all that?
I'd say from like a business standpoint and just like from learning from people who have done it. I mean, uh how I built this podcast is fantastic because they walk through from where these like entrepreneurs started in their journey, then to like the idea, and then through each stage, like it's like, okay, let's get the product or service or whatever, and then it's like, oh well, how do I get like funding, or like how do I fund it, and then they kind of go through that. So they take you through each step of the process, even up to like acquisitions and things like that. So that was a huge one where I just learned like the process of like building a business or building a brand, and that helped me a ton. So I loved that podcast. And then besides that, like we like met a lot of like great people along the way that we kind of introduced to just from like mutual like friends. It's like, hey, oh, I had a friend who like started like a business. And it's like, at first, well, even now, it's like, I'll never say no to talking to like anybody. Like, it's like, oh, you have this friend who did this thing. Yeah. Let's set up a meeting and talk to him. So it's like, you can just learn so much just from talking to people who have been through it before. And that's probably one of the biggest things that I've learned through this process.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the funding, because I actually wanted to talk to you about that. I don't know if we'll have time. Maybe we'll get there at the end of the final five. But
okay, yeah.
So number 2 is, what advice would you give yourself as a new grad?
I'd say going back to myself as a new grad, I would probably say
get out of Tennessee.
Definitely get out of Tennessee. Go somewhere where you're going to make more money. Probably find like a per diem position, because I feel like that gives you so much, like, especially if you have like other interests or things like that. Just gives you a little freedom to like either test out the waters and see like what like part of nursing you like, or even just like, you're not locked into like 3 days a week doing, this job that you maybe don't like, if it's like med surge or something like that. So I think per diem's great if the hospital offers it. But yeah, probably also, if you don't like something like med surge, I was not a fan of, don't stay in it because you think it's like the only thing, because that's probably why I stayed in it so long. And then I like floated to outpatient surgery, and I'm like, what is this like haven that I'm in? And so that's probably another thing. It's like, don't stay in a situation that like you don't like, or that's not, like wearing you down.
Yeah.
Number 3 is, what are you excited about for the next 12 months?
Next 12 months. We've got a lot of like new stuff we're going to launch. We've got a few like secondary products that we're looking at launching. We're starting to work on a new design for a shoe that we're really excited about. So a few new like colors and SKUs that we're working on for our current model. So we're really excited about that. And also maybe getting some money, some outside investment, which would be awesome. We're in a good spot right now because the way the business is, we don't need the investment. Like, we can keep functioning as a business, and not like, oh, if we don't get some money, like we're going to be out of business in like 3 months or 6 months or whatever. So we can keep going. It would just be really nice to be able to just grow a little quicker, and be able to do some of these new shoes. Have like, the mold costs are extremely expensive. And it's like a one-time cost, but it's like, if you're going to do a new model, you have to make a new mold. And so that's in addition to like your first inventory order, if you want to do that too. So it's just like a ton of upfront costs that would make that a whole lot easier. And then we can build out a team if we get some investment too. So if we can get that, there's a lot of stuff that can happen, and we can grow really quick, I think. And so that's what I'm looking forward to.
So are you guys like Shark Tank, or just like hitting up people you know?
Yeah, so we did apply to Shark Tank and didn't hear anything. So, Mark Cuban's lost, but
right, yeah. Too bad for them.
But yeah, right. But we actually put an advisory board together, which actually is another piece of advice for anybody wanting to like start a business. We found like 3 individuals who are experts like in their field. One guy's been in marketing for years. Another guy's done operations. Another guy's been a CFO of like startups. So everybody's been in that startup space and has so much experience. And so we brought them on as advisors, and they've been helping us a lot through the like preparing to go out and meet investors. And so we're putting a list together of like investors we'll reach out to, like VC firms and angel investors, but also we've got some connections through them that they'll introduce us to as we're like prepared and ready to go out.
So what does that look like when you bring on, because they're not on salary, I assume, and as a startup, I don't know, it's hard to give away some of your hard-earned equity. So what does that look like when you bring these people on, because they're not doing it for free, I assume?
For sure. Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, first had the introductions made. We talked to them for probably like 2 or 3 months, just like going back and forth, like hearing their story. Then, like they're vetting us as much as we're vetting them. Like they don't want to get into like an advisory position if like they don't believe in the company. And like we don't want to bring somebody on if they're not like aligned with our vision either. So a lot of it was just like talking and going back and forth, see if we're like vibing and on the same track. And then we do advisory shares, so we've given them some advisory shares. It's not like it's like 1%, either three guys 1% each, so it's like not a ton of equity. It is some equity, but it's like Alex and I, like, we've been working with them for, like probably 6 months or so now. And we're like, oh, best equity we've given up. Like, that's the only equity we've given up, but
Yeah.
completely worth it for us. Cause these guys are amazing. They have great connections. They have so much knowledge about like just startups and, going out and raising money, which like neither Alex or I have done that before. So like that knowledge has just been like invaluable. So for us, it was 100% the right call.
How did you guys decide on that structure of giving up the 1% equity? Is that what they were asking for, or did they want a payment and you just negotiated that instead?
Yeah. Or is that kind of standard?
No, that's kind of standard. So like we kind of, yeah, just like we talked with them. They've been on advisory boards before, and like we researched and like looked into it, and that kind of was like the standard. And so all of them too were like, hey, listen, it's not like this is any of our retirement plan. And they're like, we've all done startups, so we know you guys are like, we know you're strapped and you're preparing to go like, fundraise. And it's like, we're not trying to just like come in here and take a bunch of equity from like, two founders. So that was kind of like the fair, like what's being done. And so they agreed on it, we agreed on it. And so that's kind of how we came to
Well, I guess back to the final five. Number 4, what
that.
how do you define success?
Success, man. I'd say I define success as being able to like have a vision, go out and then execute it. And so I would say, like, for me, I mean, I guess it's hard because it's like, I guess technically sales, like seeing people actually like your product and are buying it. And like, so it kind of validates like this thing we made and this like idea we had. But I wouldn't say it's necessarily the sales. It's just that being able to go out and execute an idea and getting feedback and like reviews from people being like, wow, we love these shoes. This is like exactly what we were looking for. I'd say for me, that's success, because it's like we've taken this product and put it out there, and then now we're making sales, and that's, coming in. But also I'd say even if like we this didn't work out and we had to move on to something else, I'd say it'd be success from a standpoint of like, we went through the process, we made the product, and who knows, maybe if it was like the wrong market or like something like that and it just didn't pan out, I would still feel like I could go into the next business and be like, I feel like I can do the same thing, but now I've learned more and I know the mistake I made this last time. And so I'd say that would be a success for me, even if like it wasn't showing necessarily through like tons of sales.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that question because everybody always has a different answer.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah.
it's great. All right, our 5th question is, what is the biggest financial mistake that you have made, and what would you guys learn from it? Or you? I don't know if it was your business or if it was something else.
Yeah. Financial mistake. I'd say for us so far, it was the story I told earlier about going with that agency. It was, I think we ended up being with them 3 months, and we paid like, what was it? It was like 3,500 a month for 3 months, and definitely like sales did not like cover that. Like we're like, okay, like it'll cover their fee plus, we'll like, you know, sales will go up and whatever. It's like we weren't even covering their fee from like our sales when they took over. So I'd say that was probably the biggest mistake we made, and we maybe didn't vet the company enough, and that was one we look back and we're like, well, we learned, we did, we lost some money, but like now we can move on and we won't make that mistake ever again.
Yeah. Well, they were a good marketing company because they convinced you to buy their product.
They were, yeah.
So it's not that they're not good at what they're doing.
100%. And it's like the more like people like I've talked to and like shared that with that have like been in this space, or even like the guy who's running our ads now, who he like worked for like a marketing firm for a while, and then him and like his coworker went and started their own thing. So it's like much smaller scale. Like he's the one who runs our ads. He's the one we talk to, like, which is how you want it to be. He was like, yeah, man, when you get in with these big agencies, he's like, I've heard so many horror stories. So unfortunately, that seems to be like the not so unusual part of it, but you don't know until you know, I guess.
Well, we were had by a similar situation, kind of. So that's just the way it goes. But oh well.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, lots of.
Oh, go ahead.
Lots of learning.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Always. It never stops. Yeah. That part never stops.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
So where can people find you, find the shoes, and get going with this?
Yeah. So I'm Loftin.Dortch on Instagram, and then of course where.uni, UNI. That's going to be all our social, and then www.uni.shoes. That's going to be our website where you can go check us out and buy some shoes that you want.
We'll get out there.
Affiliate link, Investing RN Pod. Is that what it is? Investing RN, or is it just Investing RN?
We'll link it.
We'll link it because I don't remember either.
Yeah.
But yeah, use that link and save some money.
Yeah. And I can vouch that they're. So I think Josh has a pair too. And
I have them also. Yeah. And they're great. Yeah.
Yeah. So get out there and buy some shoes.
Comfort level 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And style.
Yeah.